Hey, this is a job hunting seminar, adjusting to job hunting and COVID Day 1. Before we start, there is housekeeping matter. First, please turn off your microphone and turn on the video if it's possible. Second, please change your display name to the application name. Third, any recording or screenshot is not allowed. Thank you for your understanding. Now we start. The event host, the consortium of University in Hyogo, is a collaborative organization consisting of 39 universities in Hyogo Prefecture. Currently, we are conducting an international exchange-based project on behalf of Japan Student Service Organization called JASO. In addition, as a platform for industry, government, academia collaboration, we are working to enhance education and collaborate with local government and industry with internationality at the core. So this program is co-hosted by Kansai Economic Federation and the Mexico Scholar Association. Thank you. This event is its third year. We have held it an event for international students enrolled in English track. This time, the theme focused on adjusting to job hunting under COVID. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way how companies are handling internship and employment. In this age, we need a new method to accurately collect various information which connect it to an individual's employment. On the other hand, the two important points that have been in Japanese job hunting culture, such as self-promotion and how to find your own axis, are still essential. International students should be aware that being a foreign student and knowing how to utilize that to prepare oneself for job hunting in Japan will be the key point. Japanese job hunting starts from internship, so we will ask experts to give concrete example of how to search for and utilize internships under COVID and how to conduct your self-promotion. So this is today's timetable. After this opening, we'll have speeches from the two experts. From 6:40 to 7:30, we'll have a Q&A breakout session. We'll divide you into two groups, and each speaker will stay in your room for 15 minutes. After the breakout session, we will share some points and close this event at 7:30. By the end of this event, Mr. Austin Sen will have Q&A extra time session. So if you have any question, please stay. So this is the speaker brief introduction. Mr. Austin Sen, the president of Mexico Scholar Association, he is expert as well as facilitator. Mr. Tomoko, Ms. Tomoko Okabe, a career coach and communication trainer, she is today's expert too. So now moving on to the expert session, Mr. Sen, please.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that everyone is dry. It looks like it's bad weather throughout the whole of Japan today, but thank you for joining me. So, can you see my screen? Is my screen visible? Okay, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining us today. And so today we'll be talking about like how internships in Japan work, and they work kind of differently for what you expect if you come from overseas. And so this is what I'll be be talking about mainly. If you have any questions, please hold them until the breakout session and or later on so that I can answer them in a more intimate way. Yeah, but anyway, so internships Japan. Now, some of you who are here may have already heard of this thing called a one-day internship, and I do want to explain how things are different here. But anyway, first, before I go into the meat of the things, let me just talk a bit about myself and some self-promotion. So I am the Mexico Scholar Association president right now. And as you can see right here, I also do lecture about foreign student careers, not just today, but also many other sessions. My main work is different though. I am an engineer mainly, but I also do translation and interpretation. If you want to read more about job hunting in Japan, though, I do have my blog where I write a lot about job hunting in Japan and all the kind of tips. So you can take a look at my blog. It's just simply my name.com, and you can take a look at it later. So you are probably here because you want to learn something about Japan or develop your skills from internships. And, for many of us here, right, including myself, doing internships is very normal where you're from as a student, right? And doing so in your holidays. So yeah, you want to do something in your holidays instead of just playing games or something like that. So you have these needs. But when you search for Internship Japan on Google or something, this kind of thing comes up. And you're like, what is a one-day internship? This is a very mysterious thing that you have never heard of anywhere else in the world before. What happened to 5 days a week during the holidays? And so today, this is the topic that we want to talk about. So the first thing I want to say is that there are two things actually when we talk about internships in Japan. There are the Japanese short-term internships and the long-term internships, and I will be talking about both to ensure that some of you have some clarity about which ones you want to go into and how you find them. So yeah, let's talk about the first thing, which is the Japanese short-term internship. So the biggest thing that many of you will be thinking about is, what is the point? What is the point of a short-term internship? It's going to be one day. We have to understand that the word internship here is not what we would call it if it was overseas. An internship in this case, right, for most of the internships which are like 5 days and below, function more as work experience and work exposure programs than real internships as we call them overseas. So when you actually go to these internships, you don't really do work. The staff at the company may be bringing you around the office or something like that and talking to you about how the company works, what kind of things do they do, and these kind of topics. But the thing is that, and there may be some group discussions here and there, and companies do so because it is a good branding for them. And it is a good way for them to actually show you the people and show you the good side of the company so that you will apply at a later date when the actual application period is actually open. So let's look at some of the details of these less than 5-day internships that I want to talk about. So the Japanese short-term internship is usually for 5 days and below. They are not usually paid, and they are often time limited in the sense that they are in the summer holidays and the minority of them will be in winter. And because the Japanese job hunt, this is a short-term internship that leads directly as part of the so-called job hunting calendar. This therefore means that most of these internships are actually limited in terms of the kinds of academic years that they are set. So generally speaking, you'll be looking at your third-year bachelor's year, or if you're in a master's, maybe your first year of master's. People who apply who are not from these years may be immediately rejected because that you are not part of the job hunting year. And I also have to say that for most of these short-term internships, are pretty much you'll be asked to do them. Okay, most of them will not be for foreign students. So the thing is, you will have to apply and perform these internships with Japanese students. The extension of that means that most of these will be done in Japanese and therefore will require a high level of Japanese. And yes, because of because this is a branding exercise, the vast majority of them are going to be in person, and which will link to a bit of how the pandemic has affected this thing, which I will explain later. So many of you will be thinking, okay, so I got it, but so 1 to 5 days. It's not as if they're going to give me a direct job offer from that, because this is just a branding exercise and this is just a job experience exercise. So why participate? I mean, it's not as if 5 holiday days aren't precious. I mean, you could play games. I would be playing games, or you could go travel somewhere. So in the end, why even participate in the first place? Now, when you're looking at job hunting, though, participating in these kind of internships, it's not necessary, but it can be important, because when we look at these kind of things, right, there's a signaling effect. participating in a summer internship of this form or a winter internship of this form is something that you will write in your resume for the main application in the following April. Therefore, having that on your resume is a sign that you're actually like thinking actively about your career, that you are actually very active, that you are, going through like, you are making the efforts to find out about society. And also, if your internship that you actually apply for is a hard to get internship, that itself is a positive sign for any other company that looks at your resume afterwards. Now, I mentioned that you're not going to get a direct job offer, but there are backdoors nowadays. So the thing is that for many companies, they may be having like a little list of people that make good points during the group discussion, for example, and then they make tell them afterwards that, okay, you perform very well, and when the job hunting comes up in later, we can waive the first interview for you and you go directly to the second interview and these kind of things. It happens. So that's one other thing. Another thing is that any experience that you get when you're job hunting, like that's close to society and close to how people work, is important. And therefore, for example, you never know whether something that you learned through this one-day internship actually could be used in an interview later on. This is one way for you to differentiate yourself from other students and other applicants who may apply to the same company but do not have that kind of information and that kind of exposure to working society that you could gain from this internship. So yeah, that's one thing I would say. So the question for you there, for many of you, is therefore, how do you find these internships? Now, these internships are very easy to find. All you need to do is to Google the correct word. For the internships that are happening for this year, for example, like in the winter, you're looking at just Googling this thing that I'm writing down here, 你就上手指, graduating in the year 23, in winter intern or winter internship or something like that, and you can find it, because most of the places which are doing this will be doing that will be searching for them online. You will go to the big portals like Gnavi and stuff like that, and they're all kind of listed down there. So if you need to, just Google this kind of stuff. If you are graduating later than that, just change the year and it will come up. So yeah. So just one little note before I go on. There are effects from COVID, as I mentioned, because because this is a branding exercise and most of these things are done in person, right? Many internships have been canceled over the last 1.5 years. Okay, because but the thing is that now it looks like things are resuming, so we don't really know how it's going to happen for this winter, which is going to be this February probably and March. But fingers crossed, there may be opportunities. Then some of you may be thinking about, well, what's the other option that we have down here? We also have long-term internships in Japan. These are the minority though. But neither are they exactly the kind of internships that you think about overseas. Overseas, you'll be thinking about going into a company in the summer for 3 months, maybe 5 days at a time. The way that we need to think about internships in Japan is not exactly that, but it's close. So how do interns work here in Japan? Long-term internships work. Basically, you do work. This is different from the short-term internships. The short-term internships, you do not do work. It's more of exposure, maybe some discussions. But long-term internships are, so you kind of do work, or else you may get fired or something, to be honest. It is a chance for you to learn and earn because these are paid. And for companies, it is a good way for them to have smart people join them to do work. So another helping hand. In short, it is pretty much Baito++, a upgraded version of a typical Baito that you can do in Japan. So let's look at what usually happens for these kind of internships. So you're looking at 2 or 3 days a week, maybe 6 hours at a time or 8 hours at a time. Basically, it's within your Baito permit hours. You will be paid Baito wages. If you are an engineer intern, maybe you'll be paid more than that. Many times there is no fixed period for this, so you can actually apply year-round because companies are lacking good labor nowadays. So the thing is, many companies will just hire you as an intern if needed. Who? Well, anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're first year, second year, third year, or fourth year, as long as you can contribute to the company. And many places now are actually do allow for remote interns. So you can actually do internships like these kind of long-term internships from everywhere in the world. And yeah, everywhere in the world. I don't think I really need to say this, but I mean, yeah, I should say like, why participate, but you should have kind of guessed it right now. But yeah, long-term internships, why participate? You get money. Money is important. Money is why we work. Yes. Number one. Number two, backdoors are huge for long-term internships. I myself found my first job through a long-term internship, and I never did a single day of going through the typical Japanese job hunting or shukatsu. So the thing is that there are backdoors, and this could be one way for you to get a job quickly without a headache. But it depends on your performance. Through doing long-term internships, I can also say that you have a huge edge in job hunting. Why? Because from my experience, the kinds of answers that interviewees give do differ a lot from whether they have long-term internship experience or whether they do not have long-term internship experience. Why? Because you know how the working world is because you have worked in it. So that is one reason why, like, I do really recommend doing long-term internship. And also another thing is that you get to understand Japanese society, not just student society. Student society is just one form and one fraction of Japanese society. The working world is exposed. You can get exposed to the working world through doing a long-term internship. And then the question is how to find. The problem about long-term internships in Japan is that they are relatively rare and that there is no formula to finding them. And it's kind of like finding work. There is no formula to it, but I'm just going to give a few overall tips. Number one, generally speaking, it is going to be small and medium companies and startups which are going to offer these kinds of opportunities. When we look at long-term internships, though, we need to think about this. What can you provide? Are you learning programming something and you have some skill and therefore you can look for an engineering intern? Are you bilingual and you can do things like, let's say, an overseas sales intern, or let's say like, translation internship or something like that? Once you know this kind of stuff, then maybe you can go and think about what kind of company will want somebody like me. Yeah. If it's an engineering intern, tech companies. If it's like a translation intern, any company that may be looking to sell overseas, for example. Think about these kind of things. But one thing I want to say, internships are not places where you do sexy work. You kind of need to do like very boring work sometimes. My first internship that I ever did was me reading through hundreds of people's profiles and sending them template emails every day. Not sexy, but you have to start from somewhere. And if you start from somewhere through a long-term internship, that can be an advantage that brings you to a good job in your job hunting process. So that is why I really highly recommend it. So how do you actually find this stuff? I have to say that for long-term internships, personal introductions are extremely important. The one huge way that people get internships is that they know somebody doing a long-term internship at a company, and the company asks them to look for more people and they invite you. So there's personal introductions. That's why your student network can be very important. Aside from student networks, though, there are platforms. These are maybe some of the ones that I can immediately think of. LinkedIn, many internships on there, but particularly in engineering, I believe. Wantedly, yes, but the thing is, for both Wantedly and LinkedIn, the Japanese standard tends to be quite high. One last thing, though, there is nothing stopping you from going to a startup's recruitment website and directly applying to a company. Why? Because there is a high chance that they will be lacking people. And so they would be very appreciative if somebody who is good sends in the resume and says that I can commit 2 days of maybe 6 hours for 6 hours a week. Do you have a place for me? I only need vital wage or something like that. These are the kind of things that you can do, even if they're not advertising their position. So that's something that I do want to say, do consider directly applying for places, especially because many of the places which will accept interns are small and medium companies and startups which do not have a recruitment advertising budget. So I have just rushed through everything right now because I don't have time. But if you have any questions, let's talk about them in the breakout rooms. But for me, that's my little explanation about Japanese interns right now. And that's all for today. I have a lot more said and to say on my blog. Once again, if you want to read more about it, please take a look at my blog. And that does it for my presentation. Thank you all so much for listening. And with that, I believe I should invite the next speaker, Okabe-san, to talk about how to brand yourself. Okabe-san, please.
Thank you so much. Well, his blog is plenty of information. Please look at it. I'm also learning from his blog. Just a moment, please. Okay, again, my name is Tomoko Okabe, and I am a career consultant. I've been doing this job for 8 years, and I mainly support university students to find their jobs. But actually, I mainly support Japanese students and international students, but who speaks Japanese. So this time, I'm really glad to be here to support English track students. Okay, and today my theme is how to find your strengths and how to make a strong statement about yourself. Okay, so before we begin, I'd like to introduce this chart. This chart is called career development process or career decision-making process. In other words, this shows the whole process of job hunting activities. So as you can see, the first step is self-assessment. So it's like who am I? What do I want, or what do I value? You know, the values, interests, personality, skills, things like this. And the second step will be exploring your option, means gathering all the information related with jobs. And many students tend to apply to the company they already know, or they are familiar with, but that's no good. Please broaden your perspective. That is important to find a right fit for you. And step 3 is gaining experience. This step means joining internship or participating volunteer work or something like that. And step 4 would be setting and seeking goals. Means now you have you decide some companies you're applying for. So this stage is improving resumes or enhancing your interview skills, things like this. And finally, step 5, enhancing career. So now you have several offers from the companies. So in this stage, you need to assess your options and making decisions. Reevaluate the working environment again. Then maybe you need to talk to your professor or talk to people in your homeland and see if this is the right choice or not. And if it's not the right choice, go assessing yourself again. So it's a circulation. It's always like this. Yeah. So please keep in this mind to think about your career decision. So today's content here, I'm going to talk about these things, what are strengths and ways to identify good experiences. And I'd like to introduce the STAR method and strengths exploration chart, strengths reality test, and how to respond to questions. I don't know if I have enough time, but in the end, I'm going to talk about skill, value, interest, and personality, which is fundamental things. Okay, so now what are strengths actually? It's a kind of vague word, but when we consider our strengths, it is necessary to assess our skills for the first step. And the skills are mainly consisted of 3 kinds of things. The first one is functional skills, or in other words, transferable skills. This is things you do, often expressed by verbs. So persuading or motivating, negotiating, these things like this. And the middle one is here, subject skills. This is, in other words, knowledge skills. So it's a knowledge, subjects or objects that you acquire or understand well. So computers, English, Japanese, math, graphics, music, things like this. And personal trait skills is ways you manage yourself or the way you discipline yourself. And this one is expressed by adjectives or adverbs. So proactive or dependable, tenacious, creative, things like this. So how you combine these three kinds of skills is what makes you unique. And this is your strength. For example, if you are good at researching and you have high skills of computer, and then you are dependable. That means you're researching dependably using high level of computer skills. That's your strength. So think about this combination of three skills so that you can find your strengths. But actually, I don't know about you guys, but many students have asked me that, oh, I don't have any strengths. I'm not qualified enough for the position, things is a kind of a negative comment that I have received. If you are not like this and full of confidence and you know your strengths already, that's fine, go for it. But if you don't have enough strength, confident, then please know that first of all, accept yourself as having unique kind of excellence. You do have strengths and recognize you have been using already these elements of your excellence. And believe you'll find strengths by identifying your good experience. And once you find your strengths, focus on using them. You can develop them into outstanding skills. So key point will be good experiences, as you can see. So next, I'm going to talk about good experiences. So what are good experiences? Good experiences are something you did well or enjoy doing or are proud of. So these four questions, I prepared 4 questions for you. These are a kind of introductory questions that could be triggered to recall your memories. So I want you to look back on your past and think about those questions for now. Oh, I don't enough time, so I'm just take 1 minute for you. Please write something you want on your note handy. The first one is, what is the good experience that first comes to your mind? And the second one is, in your latest assignment, project, activities, or work, which part of it did you do best and enjoy it most? And the third one, in your formal schooling, which 2 or 3 subjects did you or will you continue to study and enjoy most? And the fourth one is, what activities give you the most enjoyment when you are doing extracurricular activities? So I'm gonna take 1 minute. Please write it down. From childhood to now. Any story is okay. I mean, if it's something you did well and enjoy doing and are proud of. Ten seconds left. Okay, how is it? Do you come up with any ideas? Or if you don't come up with any, that's fine. 1 minute is too short. I know. Please, try it later. But then I would like to ask you more good stories. Here you go. Because the quantity is important. So remember as many as you can, but here, list 10 to 15 of your good experiences, but this time with a few words to each, like this group presentation in communication class, or student club fundraiser, or helped plan friends' graduation party, things like this, and cover all parts of your life from childhood to the present. So now I'll take 1 minute again. So write it down as many as you can. The point is, I want you to remember any kinds of stories that was good memory, that has good memory. There is a seed in that experiences. Ten seconds. Okay, how is it? So again, if you couldn't finish it, that's fine, but try it later, please. And then next step will be now narrow them down to best 5 stories from them. And I would recommend to write 1 or 2 paragraphs about that stories. And of course, I'm not going to take writing time today because it takes a lot of time. But writing 1 or 2 paragraphs about 5 stories, please. 5 stories. Usually, you need to prepare 5 stories for the interview. So 5. Please try this later. But there's a method. There's a point when you write or talk about your story. So I'll show you here. This is called the STAR method. And maybe some of you might have heard of this. STAR is taking the initial letter from here. And using this method, you can explain your story, good experiences concretely and concisely. So first, you should talk about the situation about your episode. I mean, the story, good experiences, the context of what happened, and the task. Next one is task. What do you need to get over, or what that made you think? So, there's a situation, and there must be some kind of hurdle or wall that you need to get over. So talk about this. And the next one is action. So how you go over it, accomplish your task. And then last result, what you accomplish and what did you learn from that experience. Organize your story like this, STAR, so that interviewer can understand your story well, and you can express your story concisely. So use this method, you can organize your stories and have a kind of idea of skills you were using through that experiences. So, and I'll talk to you later, but if you have an interview, interviewer might ask you behavior-based questions. Using this method, you can use this method when you answer the question of those kind of questions, behavior-based questions. So please remember this method too. And now, here is a list of the strengths, actually transferable skills list. Remember, you pick up the 10 or 15 good experiences and thinking about those experiences and compared with these skills, which skills did you use in that experiences? So this is just list, but I'll show you the chart here. So identify possible strengths you have. You have prepared 10 stories, 10 experiences. So it goes 1st to 10th. And then Here, horizontally, the skills are there. There are skills here. So go over all the skills from top to bottom and put check marks beside the ones you have been strongly applied in that experiences. So I'll show you bigger size here, like this. If you use the skills of researching on the top story, the first stories, check mark, and then maybe second story you use the different skills, third one different skills, but fourth one you use the researching skills again, in the fifth one, and then ninth one, 10th one. In this case, you use researching skills for 5 times. So put 5 here. About analyzing skills, you use these skills on the first story and 6th story and 7 stories. So you put 3 for total here. And do the same thing again from 1st to 10th. And the most, just a moment, please. And the highest total could be your significant strengths, right? So here, if you compare these two, researching skills will be your significant skills. Then I want you to test your strengths like this. Here is the reality test, strengths reality test. Pick up 6 of your strengths from that chart previously on the previous slide, and write the name of the strengths here like this, researching or negotiating, whatever, analyzing like this. And then write the name of the example here. And if it's really your significant skills, it's not, it doesn't take time to write your name of the examples. And if you cannot remember, which story was the one you applied in that skills, that means it might not be your significant strengths. So try to test. And then if possible, write a personal trait skill here too. Researching, not only writing researching, but exhaustively researching or creatively researching like this, so that you can understand yourself well, much better than nothing. And filling out this worksheet is also a good preparation for the interview preparation, because many interviewers ask you what's your strengths, but then you answer. And the second question will be, okay, I understand, but what other stories you apply the same strengths? Sometimes they ask me ask you like this, so that you can give answer the second story, third story, so that making up this worksheet is good for you. So try that. Okay. All right, and then now finally, how to structure your self-promotion. The structure, conclusion, episode summary, these are golden structure. So please use this structure. When you promote yourself, first you should nominate your significant strengths, and then in order to prove your strengths, you need to add or explain your examples, describe some situation where you demonstrate the strengths. And then lastly, for summary, explain how you would harness this particular strengths in performing the job you are applying for. And then actually these two are frequently asked questions too, reasons for applying for the job and key academic achievements. It's same. First, conclusion, make a statement about reasons for applying concisely, and then explain how you have the skills required for the job and describe how you can contribute to the organization. So here in the beginning, I said I'm gonna skip maybe step 2 and 3, exploring your option. So I'm not going to, these are, in order to answer this question, you need to understand the feature of the jobs or feature of the organization. Otherwise, you can't complete the answer completely. So so that's why company or industry research is important to answer reasons for applying for the job. And the key academic achievement is almost same as self-promotion. Nominate your key achievement in the beginning and talk about some of the events, examples to illustrate how you work toward your goals. And then at last, describe what you gain from the experiences and how it contributes to your personal or professional growth. All right. So in the end, I would like to talk about one more. Let's skip 2 slides. In the end, today, actually, I only talk about skills, but in order to find a right place, interests and values and personalities are also really important. And this, spot, career, which is called career sweet spot, is what you can find ideal job or workplace. So, keep evaluating yourself or job workplace and gather enough information to make a career decision. And just a moment. And yeah, please make time to learn about yourself and explore career options and test them out through internship or any other volunteer work or whatever, or part-time job, and make an informed decision which career options are best fit for you. I hope you can find the best fit position. Thank you for listening and participating today. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
So now we are moving on to breakout session. Are you ready?
So thanks everyone for coming back. So we're going to be talking about a few things that we had discussed about, some of the key points that I think we want to highlight based on the discussion in the various rooms, so that the people in the other room can actually know some important points. Yeah. And so I will go first, and after that, like Okabe-san will be talking about some of the things that she wants to highlight. But yeah, for me, firstly, one question I do want to state, and this goes back to the base and the principle of job hunting, is in one of the rooms I had, I got a question about, is it hard to get a job without Baito and internships, in Japan? As I mentioned here, this Baito and internships in Japan are not necessary to find a job. They are not necessary. But in the end, job hunting is competition. Job hunting is competition, and because of that, we need to think about how are you going to prove your value above everyone else who is applying for the same job. By the way, competition is quite fierce. From what I just researched, if you're looking for the top companies, for example, right, Google Japan, for every 100 applicants to Google Japan, 1 enters. This is the kind, and so therefore you need to prove that you're better than 99 other people if you're aiming for Google Japan. And so this is the reason why Baito and internships can be that itch, but you probably need many more Baitos and internships if you want to enter Google in Japan, because it's very fierce. But yeah, remember this: any experience is better than 0. The more experience that you have, the more an itch that you have when you're doing job hunting. Internships are one kind of this kind of itch that you can put to your own name and will give you some depth when you are actually job hunting. So one question that I got was about another thing that was important. I think I need to talk about Japanese. So Japanese is often necessary for the short terms. Why? Because it is very rare. I may have seen 1 or 2 before which do for short-term internships specifically for foreign students, but it's extremely rare. If you want to aim for a short-term internship, like the 5 days and below internships that I was talking about just now, right, you probably have to do it with the Japanese students. Because of that, most places will actually place a filter saying that if you do not have a JLPT N2 and above or a similar level, you will not be successful in the selection for the internship. For the long-term internships, however, the base, and I repeated this in both rooms, the base is, can you contribute as a Baito to the company? If you can contribute to the company as a Baito, in, for example, being an engineer intern, You do not need Japanese for that. Other things as well, if you're doing market research for your home country and you maybe have an N3, but that's enough for you to report your results to your superior, that's okay. So that's the kind of thing that you need to think about. The base is, can you contribute as a baito for long-term internships? Whether your Japanese is important for that depends on the exact role that that you're applying for. So that's one thing. Okabe-san, do you have anything to add regarding like some of the points that were mentioned inside your room?
No, not really. Well, I answered each questions, and well, you can use the time if you want.
Okay, sure. There were some people who wanted to ask me some things, and I couldn't answer them. But if the people whose questions I couldn't answer just now, could you repeat your questions inside the chat? Or if you want to, you can raise your hand and I can call on you to answer, like, you know, for you to bring up your voice and for you to ask questions as well. Yep. In the meantime, let me do some shameless self-promotion and put my blog link inside the chat. Yes, shameless self-promotion is important. Yes. Yes, people. Hey, questions. No one wants to ask me a question right now. Why? Why?
Yeah, just a comment that I usually read your blog and it's very, very helpful for international students specifically.
Thank you. I write all that. I write all that for a reason.
I have one question.
Yes, please.
Yes, I was working for a big multinational American company in my country, and actually it has more than one branch here in Japan. So would I be taking the risk if I just to focus on applying to that company only without others, since I have many years of experience working for them in my home country branch, or they will treat me as a Japanese, like any other Japanese applicant without any history or experience with them, since the branch is based here, not the same branch that was based there, but they all belong to the same big company in America.
Understood. Okay, now this question is a very interesting question, and from this we need to think about how do we analyze companies. Okay, so let me give you an example. Once I was actually working with like Walmart, basically, like I've heard about stories about Walmart here in Japan. One time, in a recruitment event that I was doing, we had another person who actually was doing Walmart in his own country. He was from Walmart in his own country, and he was like, and he was quite confident in being able to enter Walmart in Japan. I wasn't as sure as him. Why? Because when we look at things, we need to think about what that company is doing in Japan. Walmart in Japan, for example, they are mainly bringing things that are manufactured overseas to sell here in Japan, sales and marketing here in Japan. Would they be more likely to hire a Japanese person for these kind of roles? The answer is yes, because they need somebody who understands the local market and understands and can do the marketing in native Japanese. Now, but if we look at other things like, for example, Facebook, IT is generally not so culture specific. So therefore, my question is, you need to analyze, what does the office in Japan do? That will be a big clue as to whether your profile in your home country would actually apply. But in the case that your experience, in the case that, maybe we may calculate wrong, right? I would say it's dangerous to only focus on one company. Yeah, so please don't do that. Focus on multiple companies, because that's actually important, like in terms of risk management. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. One more question is, I want to know what is the best option for foreign students to catch or hunt a job. Look for small companies, or can look for different. Can work with the medium or great companies in Japan. What's the best advice for start?
I am going to say that if you want to know the answer for this, come to our session in 2 weeks' time. That is exactly what I'll be talking about the common places that people miss when they're job hunting. I guess this is time where I I add, this is why I also write my blog. It's just easier for me to put a link to my blog where I've talked about it like so many times than talking about things every single time. It's not your fault, nobody's fault. Yeah, I'm just saying that, you know, like this is probably the most relevant link for that. Regarding like, you know, some things but like Okabe-san, do you have anything to say about the past two questions? Yeah.
Well, could you say the question again?
So is it about like where to find like good ways to find companies to apply to? And the previous thing was from Aya-san, who was talking about like, you know, her previous experience in her
yeah. Well, I think I completely, my opinion is completely same as yours. Well, big company, of course, recruit international students who speaks English, but a smaller company or venture company has more flexibility, and you can negotiate or convince them to you know, have you know, join the, make you in the company, join the company. But big company organization has a, you know, strong rule, and it's really methodically, so it's kind of difficult to, if you are not if your condition is not fulfilled, it's kind of difficult to get in.
Yeah.
exactly
the same thing I would say, like, you know, but I have a bias because I only work in small companies, so that's my own bias. But yeah, we got a question from on the text. So we have this person who is asking, you know, so if you're new doing job hunting and you don't think that you have talent, but try to show or tell them you can do anything to participate in the company. The problem about this statement, and I think like Okabe-san, this is more about like something I think that you want to talk about, but let me just give my comments first. The problem is that everyone is doing this. Everyone who is a fresh graduate many people who are fresh graduates don't think that they have talent, but they're trying to show that that you can do anything to participate in the company. You see, it's very common. What is the evidence? What is the evidence that you have? Is it past experience? Is it a skill? Do you have certificates? Is your professor, like, you know, like writing you a recommendation letter? So the thing is that, yeah, this is what is going to divide the people who can prove it and people who cannot prove it. And that's what I'll say about it. That's why doing internships and whatsoever is important, is what I'll say. But Okabe-san, anything to add? As a career consultant, I think you're better at this than me.
Yeah, well, not additional things actually. Yeah, you said everything. You do for the interviewer side of view. Yeah, they want to want something that they can actually, they can take a risk. I mean, recruiting you guys are, I mean, taking a risk for the human resources person, because they have responsible for hire you, that, and they are which means they are responsible for your future possibilities, and, you know, investing almost, you know, a lot of money, right, to hire you. So in order to convince them, you need a strong evidence for that. Yeah. Well, exactly same story again. Sorry about that, but
do you want to know how much money they invest in you, by the way, for their recruitment budget? You'll be surprised. For I think that right now, like the Shin, I don't know about right now, but in a few years previously, right, when I was looking at how much companies actually spend to actually recruit people, right, like, you know, it could be up to, like, let's say, for each fresh graduate that the top company wants to spend on, they could spend like 1 million yen on recruitment.
Exactly, that's right.
And so you need to prove that you're worth the 1 million yen. And this is not your salary. This is just on recruiting you. This is doing all the recruitment events, making sure that you can do the interviews, hire, like, you know, paying for the recruiter if they're using a recruiter. And that's why, like, you know, as like Okabe-san mentioned, like they are investing a lot in you, and you need to prove that you are the person that is worth more than the other graduates and the other competitors, which are like, you know, which are also competing against you. Another point is that it is easy to say, it is harder to prove. Where is your proof? That's a question that every one of us needs to answer. Okay? We have time for one more question. One more short question. Yes, Haris.
As Okabe-san mentioned before, that we need to explore like for new options which we are not aware of. So for that, I would like to ask for some resources or some like platforms where we can look for like new companies related to our field.
Come again in 2 weeks. Come again in 2 weeks. Come again in 2 weeks. Yes.
Actually, the person from HR division will talk about it and join the discussion. Yeah, so I really think so too.
Kishigami-san from Horiba Seisakujo is actually here with us today, and she will be talking about about her own experience as the HR, hiring people, and I will be talking about the common places which people do not look at. Okay, so I believe we're just about time actually. So Aya-san, thank you for the question. I'm actually going to pass the time back to Suga-san from the consortium, who will be talking about the session in 2 weeks' time and when and exactly it is. Okay, so let me bring back the time to Suga-san. Yeah.
Right. Now I'd like to announce the next event. We also take photos of the event and have extra Q&A time with Ms. Zen-san after this event. So if you have time, please remain to the end. So next event on 1st of December, we'll have day 2, adjusting to job hunting and the COVID from 8 p.m. The theme is more focused on self-promotion and company understanding. We will have speeches from 2 experts on this subject that will be useful international students, such as understanding company and common mistake that foreign student makes, that he said before. And a member of the HR division of Horiba will share the company's perspective of recruiting international students. So if you've not applied yet, we highly recommend applying for this too. And next, another event from 8 p.m. on 30th of December, we'll hold a dialogue event, Working Whether Purpose is Over, the definition of plus alpha created from work. This time, we'll invite representatives from JICA, Egypt office, and Osekai Real Estate to talk of working style, way of thinking, and way of life. Not only focused on the assigned task, but also finding your own individual way of living and working purpose from the concept of plus alpha. It means plus something special. This will be a heated brainstorming session for 90 minutes. There will be discussion and Q&A session. Please join us. So now we are taking photos. Are you ready for it? Please turn on the video if you're okay. And show me a big smile. Okay, so big smile, say cheese.